A 606 ranked junior golfer just walked into one of the toughest fields in the country and walked out with the trophy. And nobody saw it coming. I want you to stop for a second. Close your eyes and imagine this. You're standing on the first tee of a major junior invitational. The field around you is stacked. We're talking elite players. Kids who have been ranked in the top 50, top 25, some even higher. Kids who have been groomed, coached, prepared, and pointed at events like this one for years. Their swing coaches are watching. Their college recruiters are watching. Their parents have traveled across the country just to be there. And then there's you, ranked 606th. Not 6th, not 60th, 606th. You are statistically one of the lowest ranked players in this entire field. On paper, you don't belong here. On paper, this week is supposed to be a lesson, a humbling experience, a chance to see what elite junior golf looks like up close. Take your notes, go home, and come back better next year. That's what the data says. That's what the rankings say. That's what almost every analyst, every golf observer, every person who looked at that starting field would have told you before the first ball was ever struck. But here's the thing about golf. Golf does not care about paper. Golf does not care about projections. Golf does not care about what should happen. Golf only cares about what does happen. 72 holes. Shot by shot. Hole by hole. And by the end of this particular week, something happened on that leaderboard that made the entire golf world stop mid-conversation and stare. Because the name at the top? Nobody predicted it. Nobody planned for it. And for one very specific reason, nobody was fully ready to process it. Stay with me, because this is one of those golf stories that doesn't just surprise you. It moves you. And by the time we get to that final round number, that single score that changed everything, I think you'll understand exactly why. Let's start at the beginning. And I mean the real beginning. Because to understand what Charlie Woods just did, you have to understand what Charlie Woods has been carrying since the first day he ever picked up a golf club. His last name is Woods. And in the world of golf, that last name is not just a name. It is a legacy. It is a monument. It is arguably the most recognized surname in the history of this sport. Tiger Woods changed golf. Not just the leaderboard, everything. The culture, the audience, the global reach, the way this game is played under pressure, the way champions are built, the way the sport sees itself. Tiger didn't just win majors. He redefined what winning majors even looked like. So when Tiger Woods has a son who starts playing golf, the whole world notices. Not because Charlie asked them to. Not because Charlie did anything to earn that attention at age 5 or 8 or 10. But because that's how it works when you carry a name that big. The spotlight doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't wait for you to develop. It doesn't wait for you to build something worth watching. It just shows up. And it never leaves. Charlie has been photographed, analyzed, debated, praised, and criticized at an age when most junior golfers are just trying to figure out their ball flight. Before he ever broke 70. Before he ever played in a serious competitive event. Before he had a single significant result to his name. People were already forming opinions. Some people looked at the swing and saw Tiger's fingerprints. The posture, the tempo, the competitive instincts. They saw a kid who absorbed the game from the greatest player who ever lived and concluded that something special was inevitable. Others pushed back hard. They called it hype. They said the coverage was excessive. They pointed out that genetics don't guarantee greatness. That having a famous father doesn't mean you inherit his talent, his obsession, or his ability to perform when everything is on the line. And honestly, both sides had a point. But here's the thing that both sides kept missing. Charlie hadn't had his moment yet. Not really. Not the kind of moment that settles the argument. Not the kind of moment that forces everyone to stop talking in theories and start talking in results. That moment hadn't come yet. Until this tournament. The event is the Team TaylorMade Invitational. And if you know junior golf, you know this is not a soft event. This is not a participation tournament. This is not a local qualifier. This is a serious, high-level competition featuring some of the best junior players in the country. The field is deep. The names in it are ranked. These are players who have been competing at the national level, collecting results, building AJGA rankings, getting attention from coaches and college programs. These are players who belong in the conversation about the next generation of professional golf. And Charlie Woods walks in ranked 606th. Let me give that some context, because I don't want the number to slide past you too quickly. In the AJGA rankings, your number reflects your performance history across competitive junior events. It is built through results, through consistency, through showing up in tough fields and producing scores that matter. A top 50 AJGA ranking means you have proven yourself repeatedly at a high level. 606 means you haven't done that yet. It means relative to the field in this tournament, you are an outsider. You are the underdog's underdog. You are the player nobody is building their pre-tournament analysis around. You are the name on the entry list that most people scroll past without a second thought. Except of course for one reason. The last name, which means Charlie entered this tournament carrying something double-edged. On one hand, nobody expected him to win. The pressure of expectations, in the traditional sense, wasn't really there. Most people would say that's a competitive advantage. Freedom to swing, freedom to miss, nothing to lose. But Charlie doesn't get that freedom. Because the cameras follow him. Because the media tracks his rounds. Because every bogey he makes gets noticed. Every double. Every missed fairway. Every short putt that slides by. The scrutiny of a famous name means that low expectations on paper don't translate to low pressure on the course. He carries both. The underdog's lack of expectation and the legacy player's weight of attention. That combination is genuinely unique in junior golf. Maybe in any golf. And yet, he stepped onto that first tee anyway. The early rounds of a tournament like this are interesting because the story doesn't usually reveal itself immediately. The early rounds are about settling, about finding your rhythm, about navigating a new course, adjusting to the conditions, getting comfortable with the speed of the greens, trusting your game plan. Great tournament runs rarely announce themselves on day one. They build quietly. They develop underneath the surface while other names are dominating the early conversation. And that's exactly how Charlie's week began. Not with a fireworks display. Not with a round so jaw-dropping that everyone immediately circled his name and started rethinking their predictions. It started the way most great tournament runs start, with patience, with solid ball striking, with the kind of quiet, steady golf that doesn't make the highlight reel, but keeps you close enough to matter. Shot by shot, Charlie was building something. Not surviving. Not grinding out pars and hoping the field came back to him. Building. Making birdies when opportunities presented themselves. Keeping the card clean when the course pushed back. Playing with a kind of maturity and composure that doesn't always show up in players who are still developing their competitive identity. And round by round, the scoreboard started telling a different story. Not the story people came in expecting. A different one. One where the 606th ranked player wasn't watching from the bottom of the leaderboard. One where the 606th ranked player was actually climbing. And when people started noticing, the questions began. Is this real? Is this sustainable? Can he actually maintain this over 72 holes? Can he hold it together when the field tightens and the pressure builds and every single shot carries more weight than the last? Those are the questions golf always asks. And there is only one way to answer them. Here is something that every golfer understands, no matter what level they play at. Early in a tournament week, you can breathe differently, even in a loaded field, even with something to prove. Because when you're ranked 606 and nobody is picking you to win, there's a certain looseness available to you. The worst case scenario, you go home having competed hard against elite players, is actually fine. It's fine for your development. It's fine for your ranking. It's fine for the narrative. That looseness is actually a weapon in the early rounds. But when you get close to the top of the leaderboard, that looseness evaporates. Suddenly, every fairway means more. Not just for the round, but for the tournament, for the title, for what this week could become. Every green in regulation carries a different kind of weight. Every putt inside 10 feet feels like it could change the entire story. And for Charlie, that weight had a layer most players never experience. Because now the cameras weren't just following the tournament leaders out of routine. They were following him specifically. Because of who he is. Because of whose son he is. Because the idea of Charlie Woods winning a serious AJGA event, while ranked 606, is the kind of story that goes beyond golf. That's the kind of story that ends up everywhere. The golf world knew it. The media knew it. And somewhere in the middle of that final round, Charlie knew it too. That's the moment where most players break. Not because they lack talent. Not because they can't physically execute the shots. But because the psychological weight of what's happening, the magnitude of the moment, the history trying to attach itself to your round, the crowd watching with that particular kind of breathless attention, becomes too heavy to carry cleanly through 18 holes. Most players break. Charlie didn't. Let's talk about what actually happened in that final round. Because a number only tells you so much. 66, that's the number. 6 under par. But numbers need context to mean anything in golf. Charlie made 8 birdies in his final round. 8. In the closing round of a competitive invitational, against elite junior players, under the full weight of everything we just described, he made 8 birdies. Not 2, not 3, not the 4 or 5 you might expect from a player who is simply hanging on and hoping the field collapses around him. 8 birdies. That is an attacking round. That is a player who went out in the final round not to survive, but to win, to close, to answer every question that had been building all week with the only language golf understands, shots. Think about what that requires mentally. You wake up on the final morning of a tournament knowing you're in contention, knowing the field is watching, knowing that if this goes wrong, the conversation doesn't just end with a disappointing finish. It feeds the narrative of the people who said it was all hype, that the name was doing the heavy lifting, that the talent wasn't really there. Every missed shot carries that echo. And yet, 8 birdies. A final round 66. Not playing safe. Not protecting a lead with conservative golf. Attacking. Making moves. Producing the kind of round that takes a player from contender to champion. That is pressure golf. Real pressure golf. The kind that reveals character, not just swing mechanics. When it was over, Charlie Woods was the champion. 15 under par. Winning margin of 3 shots. Let that picture form clearly in your mind. A player ranked 606th in the AJGA, one of the lowest ranked competitors in the entire field, didn't just sneak into a playoff, didn't just force a dramatic final hole finish where anything could have gone either way. Won by 3, convincingly, clearly, with room to spare. That is not luck. You do not accidentally shoot 66 in the final round of a loaded junior invitational. You do not accidentally birdie 8 holes when everything is on the line. You do not accidentally win by 3 shots against a field full of players who are ranked well above you. That result is the product of something real. Real preparation, real execution, real competitive nerve. A ranking number tells you where someone has been. That final score tells you what they are capable of right now, in this moment, when the tournament matters. And in this moment, Charlie Woods was the best player in the field. Not Tiger's son, not the famous name, not the media story, the best player, with the lowest score, on the hardest stage he had competed on. That is the scoreboard talking, and the scoreboard doesn't have favorites. When the results spread through the golf world, the reaction was immediate and emotional. Not just surprise, emotion, and I think it's worth spending some time on why. Because this wasn't just a good result at a junior tournament. If it were only that, it would get noticed and move on. Plenty of talented juniors win events every season. The conversation lasts a few days and then shifts to the next story. This didn't feel like that. This felt like something that landed differently. I think it's because the story speaks to something that goes beyond golf. Something universal. Charlie Woods has been judged before he had the chance to earn judgment. He has been compared, relentlessly, publicly, constantly, to a standard that almost no human being in the history of this sport could realistically match. He has had his development analyzed before his development was anywhere near complete. He has had his potential debated by people who haven't watched him compete, who have formed opinions based on footage, on proximity to greatness, on last names and bloodlines rather than actual evidence. How many people in their own lives know what that feels like? To be defined before you've had the chance to define yourself. To be measured against a version of success that was never yours to begin with. To have expectations, positive or negative, placed on you that have nothing to do with who you actually are and what you are actually building. That is a weight most people carry in some form. In their careers, in their families, in their communities. The feeling of being someone's child, someone's sibling, someone's legacy, before being simply yourself. And what Charlie did this week, even in one tournament, even in 1 week of junior golf, was take a step toward becoming himself. Not Tiger's shadow, not the famous name. A player, his own player, with his own result, with his own 66, with his own trophy. That's why people felt it. Now let's be honest. Because being honest is what makes this story more powerful, not less. One tournament does not make a career. One incredible week does not guarantee anything about what comes next. The road ahead is long and genuinely uncertain. Junior golf is brutal. The jump from dominant junior to competitive college golfer to professional contender is one of the most difficult progressions in sports. Most players who looked extraordinary at 16 never reached the tour. The grind is relentless. The competition deepens at every level. Injuries happen. Confidence breaks. Life gets complicated. And for Charlie specifically, the challenges ahead are uniquely layered. Because the noise is only going to get louder now. Before this week, Charlie was a famous name with moderate results and a lot of potential. That combination creates hype, but also creates some measure of distance from real expectation. People debated, but didn't fully commit to either verdict. After this week, something has shifted. Now he has a result, a real one, against a real field. And that result is going to make every future event carry even more weight. Every missed cut is going to be dissected. Every strong finish is going to raise the temperature of the conversation. The microscope just got more powerful. And the comparison to Tiger, the one that was already constant and unfair, is now going to intensify in a way that could be genuinely difficult for a young player to navigate. Because here's the truth about that comparison. It is both the most unfair thing in the world and the most unavoidable thing in the world. Tiger Woods is not a reasonable standard for anyone. Not for Charlie. Not for Rory McIlroy. Not for the greatest players of this generation who have achieved remarkable things and still can't fully escape the shadow of what Tiger did. Comparing any player to Tiger Woods is setting them up for failure. It will always be that way. The best thing that can happen for Charlie is that the golf world slowly learns to watch him on his own terms, to evaluate his progress against his own development arc, to celebrate his wins for what they are, his wins, and to understand his setbacks as part of a growth process, not as proof of a verdict. That's a healthier relationship between a player and his audience. And this win is actually the first real piece of evidence that such a relationship is possible. So what happens next? The honest answer is, we don't know. And that's actually the most exciting part. Charlie Woods is still building. He is still developing. The competitive journey ahead of him is full of chapters that haven't been written yet. There will be great weeks and hard weeks. There will be tournaments where everything clicks and tournaments where nothing cooperates. There will be rounds that remind people why they believe in him and rounds that feed the skeptics. That's just competitive golf. That's just the reality of being a developing player in a brutally difficult sport. But something is different now. Before this week, the conversation about Charlie was largely theoretical. Potential, possibility, upside, words that describe what someone might become someday. Words that are exciting but ultimately weightless. Because potential without evidence is just a story someone is telling. After this week, the conversation has evidence. One AJGA title, a 15 under par total, a final round 66 with 8 birdies, a 3-shot winning margin against an elite field, a ranking of 606 that is about to change significantly. That's not a theory. That's a fact. And facts change conversations in golf. Facts are what this sport respects above everything else. You can debate potential forever. You can't debate a scorecard. What Charlie needs now, more than anything, more than media attention, more than validation, is more of exactly this. More competitive experience. More weeks in tough fields. More chances to fail and recover. More rounds where the tournament is on the line and he has to figure out how to respond. Because competitive golf, at the highest level, is built through repetition of pressure. Not one moment of pressure. Repeated moments. Stacked moments. Years of walking up the stretch of a tournament in contention and learning something new about yourself every single time. Tiger didn't become Tiger in one tournament. He became Tiger through an unimaginable accumulation of competitive experience, obsessive preparation, and the kind of internal drive that doesn't soften when things get difficult. Charlie doesn't need to be Tiger. He needs to be Charlie. And this week, for the first time in a way that the golf world could fully see and measure, Charlie was exactly that. There is something in this story for every single person watching. Not just golfers, not just golf fans, everyone. Because the core of this story is not about a famous last name or a surprising ranking or an unexpected trophy. The core of this story is about identity, about the long, difficult, deeply personal process of stepping out of someone else's shadow and finding your own shape. Charlie Woods will always carry that name. That's not something that changes. Tiger's legacy doesn't shrink. The comparisons don't stop. The cameras don't go away. The expectations fair or unfair, realistic or absurd, don't evaporate because of one good week. But something has shifted in the story. Before this tournament, the story was, can Charlie Woods live up to the name? After this tournament, a new question has entered the conversation. Who is Charlie Woods? On his own terms? That is a completely different question, and it is a much better one, because it opens a door instead of closing one. It invites a new kind of watching, not waiting for Charlie to confirm or deny a comparison, but genuinely curious about what his own story looks like as it unfolds. That curiosity is the healthiest relationship a golf fan can have with a young developing player. Not judgment, not projection, curiosity, and maybe, if the golf world can manage it, patience. The greatest careers in this sport were not built in a single week. They were built over decades of commitment, sacrifice, failure, adjustment, and growth. The players we remember forever are the ones who didn't peak too early and didn't get defined by one moment, good or bad, before they were ready. Charlie has time. He has game. And now, for the first time, he has evidence. When people look back at this moment, I hope they remember more than just the shock, more than the 606 ranking, more than the dramatic leaderboard climb, more than the headline of Tiger's son winning. I hope they remember what this moment actually was. It was a young golfer, under enormous and unique pressure, stepping into a real competition against real players, and answering every question with the only language that matters. Shots. He hit the shots. He made the putts. He shot 66 on the day it mattered. And when the week was over, the scoreboard told a story that no one had written for him. A story that belongs entirely to him. That is the beauty of this game. In a world full of noise and narrative and outside opinion, the scorecard is clean. It doesn't know your last name. It doesn't know your ranking. It doesn't know what people said about you before the tournament started. It only knows what happened, hole by hole, shot by shot, number by number. And this week, the numbers belong to Charlie. Not to a shadow, not to a legacy, not to a comparison, to a player, to his own round, his own trophy, his own moment. Golf gave him that, and he earned every single piece of it. So now I want to hear from you. Was this one incredible week a brilliant flash that we file away and wait to see what comes next? Or was this the moment Charlie Woods genuinely announced himself to the golf world as a player with a real future in this game? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This community exists for exactly these conversations, the ones that go deeper than scores, deeper than highlights, and into the real reason all of us love this sport. If stories like this one mean something to you, subscribe and stay with us. Because golf keeps giving us moments like this one. And around here, we never miss them.